It's always great to be with a group of people who I think outside the box, which is what I was trying to do over the last few years when I became alderman. And if anybody wants to run for mayor, now's the time. I mean, it's when I got into office, and I was really looking at trying to make some changes right off the bat. And as you know, in this town, it's very hard to do. And so you have to look for jabs that you can take and progress that you can make wherever you can. And it doesn't come easy. And so last week when Mayor Daley decided to step down, we were sitting in the Finance Committee, and I'll just tell you a little bit about that. We were all sitting there talking about some of the finance issues on the table, and the whole room was full of lawyers and bankers and a large row of staff members who show up at all these meetings. And Alderman Burke took someone's cell phone and said, "I have some shocking news to tell everyone." And I thought, I'm heading for the exit. We're getting out of here. He said, very bluntly, Mayor Daley is not running for re-election. And the air left the room. I mean, it was just a big sucking sound out of the room. And I think all of the bankers and the lawyers and everybody, they were behind us, and I think they were probably cringing. The staff members, many of them looked like they were ready to break down in tears. And I think the media nearly fell off their dais in the back where they were all scrambling. Wait a minute, when did this happen? So, some of them cover the mayor, some of them have to cover the poor city council members. So they all started scrambling everywhere. And then, of course, the aldermen all started scrambling as well, thinking, I'm going to be the next mayor. But some of them did, not quite everybody. But so a few weeks ago, actually it was about July, second, third week of July, as many of you have heard, I was quoted in the paper as seriously considering a run against Mayor Daley. And I was very serious about that. I had felt that over the last 3 years, it didn't take me very long to figure out what was going on. And we had the situation with the Children's Museum and TIF transparency and the parking meters. And those were all things that kind of were building up this idea that I had that people and their pocketbooks were just tired of the city doing business this way, that we were tired of having our public assets sold out from underneath us, or our children's museum basically being sold to the highest bidder in terms of architects and planners to put into a place that was highly inappropriate. So just a few weeks ago, I was sitting there and I said, I think it's getting to the point where no one's going to step up and run against this guy, and somebody's got to do it. So that's when I kind of threw my name out there, almost inadvertently, because I said it off the record, but I guess I didn't say off the record. And lo and behold, it came out. But I think I was fine with that decision, fine with that conversation, because it really focused on what I thought was most important, and that was taking care of the taxpayers and the people in the city, and I didn't see that happening. So for myself, for the work that I've been doing over the last 3 years, it was kind of an easy way to jump into the issues and in a better way for me to start talking about the issues that are affecting all of us. So the finances of the city, we're $700 million in the hole this year on a $6 billion budget. We are billions of dollars in debt without any vision for how we're going to get out of that debt. We are essentially looking at pensions for the police and the fire and the teachers and all the different unions that have pensions, the city workers, that are in dire straits for the most part. They're severely underfunded. So we have a financial crisis on our hands, and just because Mayor Daley stepped down doesn't mean it's going to go away. So we have to work even harder now over the next few months to figure out how we're going to change that. And my agenda at the time that I was looking to run for mayor was essentially, we have to take some serious steps about how we're going to fix this financial crisis and divert the money back to where it belongs, redirect it to our decimated police force, while at the same time rebuilding the police force so that it has a relationship with the different communities that it's been severely depleted in. We have to make sure that we dive into the TIF issue, more so than I've done in the last couple years where we got TIF transparency. TIF transparency is good if the administration would take the steps of releasing the information that goes back further than 3 years. Because we know what went on for many, many years. We know what still goes on with it. The Inspector General released a report recently that showed that we lost millions of dollars in the Central Loop TIF in a very short time frame. And I know that Ben Jarofsky, who is one of my heroes here in the city, he's been fantastic for helping me learn about the TIFs. And when I first talked about him, it was at an event that he was speaking at, and I called it taxation without representation, which is essentially what it is. If we don't know where the money is going, if we know that the money is being absorbed from the different levies, from the school levy, the parks levy, and the county, we know that that money is being pulled into areas that it shouldn't be, and our schools are suffering from that. Our schools, as Mayor Daley says, we've put I believe it was $700 million into our schools from the TIF program over the last 15 to 20 years. Well, lo and behold, Ben and I estimated that he had actually taken $1.8 billion out of the TIFs from the school levy. So we still got a little over $1 billion to do in terms of catching up. Now, those financial issues resonate throughout this city. We have a serious deficit in terms of management, leadership, and capability throughout this city. And I think that my stepping out to consider running for mayor, and of course I haven't pulled the trigger on it because you still need all of your signatures and you need a lot of money to do that. My consideration was based on the fact that we weren't addressing these serious issues, the structural deficit, the deficit in terms of leadership, and I felt that if we did not start talking about these issues over the last few weeks, that we were essentially going to have a mayor who was going to walk into office again and say, we can ignore all those issues as long as I'm in office. We can ignore the financial problems that we're having, and again, take another 4 years before we really address them. So my agenda with my staff, and I have been very lucky to have a staff that spends a lot of extra time on tackling issues like the TIFs and tackling issues like the parking meter study that we did. And that was that privatization deal of the parking meters has started to resonate throughout the country. Today, I just happened to be on, before I came over here, I was on the phone with another city councilor from Pittsburgh, and they're going through the same situation that we went through, and also on the phone with someone from Indianapolis who's covering their privatization deal as well. So there's this push throughout our country to privatize the public assets that have been built up. And it's a very scary proposition because the people running the process are the same people like Morgan Stanley, who are now behind the scenes in Pittsburgh pushing their agenda. They're behind the scenes in Indianapolis. They're the big banks. They're the big venture capitalists. They're the same people who whispered into Mayor Daley's ear and said, we can make you a lot of money overnight. We can give you that shot in the arm that you're looking for, and then you deal with the consequences after the fact. And I think what happened between all of these TIF issues coming to a head, between the structural deficit that we have, the management deficit that we have, and just the waste and corruption and inefficiencies in this city government, it's all come to a head. And if it weren't for something, I think, like the parking meter deal, where we were able to expose what kind of business they really do in this city and what they were intending to do across this country, I don't think Mayor Daley would have stepped down. And I think that over the last few weeks, he was looking at the situation he was in and said, I have nowhere to go. My numbers are down, and they're down because I have frittered away all of our assets. We have a $700 million deficit, and I have no answers for the people of the city other than to figure out a way to raise their taxes through additional fines, fees, property taxes, privatization schemes that only benefit the bankers overseas and the private investors overseas. That money basically leaves our economy and does not come back in terms of building jobs. It does not come back in terms of rebuilding our countries in ways that I think we need to see it rebuild. We need to rebuild our infrastructure. And part of that infrastructure for me is looking at rebuilding our bridges, rebuilding our roads, reinvesting in our country, and stop sending the money overseas. That was my agenda, was to make sure that somebody stood up and said, we need to put a stop to this. Somebody needs to force the issues into the discussion. And I've tried to do that over the last few weeks. Obviously, the last week and a half or so has proven to be somewhat futile, because I've seen the media essentially turn this new race after Mayor Daley stepped down into a popularity contest. And it's very sad to see our issues, all of our issues, our pocketbooks, our children's, our future, be turned upside down so that the media could focus on who the most popular person is, who polls the best in this city, and who looks the best, who's got the most amount of money, who can come from D.C. and lay down a wad of cash and run for mayor, who can, and that's, it's not just one person in particular I'm talking about. It's the 25 or 30 people who never stood up to this mayor in the last 20 years. Never. When our taxes were being depleted, when our children were being shuffled around from school to school, and our teachers were being laid off, and our TIF money was being absorbed into areas that it didn't need to be. So I'll be happy when one of those people, one of them, starts to talk about the issues. And until then, I'm not going to look at any of them, I'm not going to support any of them, and I'm not going to stand up for anyone that doesn't say, here's what the agenda has to be for the future. To open up the books, to show people where the money has gone, to show people that there's a different way of doing business in this city that we've never seen before, that other cities see every day. Other cities have left us behind. Not all of them, but a lot of them have left us behind in terms of moving into the 21st century. And we need to do the same thing. There are plenty of us out there. Everybody in this room has great ideas. We're all chugging along on the same set of issues, and we know what we need to do to change the city. But we need those people in leadership to start doing the same thing and to start listening. And what I'm hoping for over the next few weeks is to put that agenda forward. If it doesn't work on the mayoral level and these candidates don't start talking about it, our fallback is to really make the so-called progressive caucus in the city council, with hopefully a lot of new members, because we know we have 6 to 10 new people coming in from the aldermen who are essentially dropping out. And I think in part they're dropping out because they're looking at it saying there's no hope for us. I believe there always is hope, but you have to do the very tough things, that take the tough choices, open up those books and show us where the money is, show the taxpayers where their dollars have gone, redirect it back where it belongs, and this city will get back onto a good footing. So I believe we have a great future, but we all have to be vigilant about the candidates. We can talk about our national issues, but the rubber meets the road here in Chicago with these new candidates, and we need to be forceful in our discussion and forceful on the issues and make sure that they talk about them and they don't leave us behind as the next mayor steps into the seat. So thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, and I know I'm going to take a lot of questions, so I'll leave it open for that. Thank you.